Welcome to the debate. And tonight's question, can India and Pakistan ever be friends? As the two countries celebrate 70 years of independence, India's Prime Minister lashed out at Kashmir separatists for scheming, saying only hugs can bring peace. But who is willing to hug who? To tell us more, I'm joined in studio by Vijay Singh. Mr. Singh, you're an Indian novelist and filmmaker, often treating the topic of India since 1947. Also with us, live from Lahore in Pakistan, we have a Mr. Ajaz Haider, editor of National Security Affairs at Capital TV. A very warm welcome to you both. I'm going to start with pretty much the same question for both of you. Perhaps, Mr. Singh, as you're in studio, I'll start with your good self. Do you think India and Pakistan, as in the countries, not necessarily the people, can be friends?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for having us over. First thing is that when two people have, I doubt if there are any instances in world history where two people have lived together fairly peacefully for 1,000 years without any Holocaust, without any massive genocides, without any world wars, without any Hitlers, without any Stalins. You know, why can't they live together today? It's just a question of bringing people together. I've just come back from London from an Indo-Pakistani family wedding where a cousin married to a Pakistani filmmaker, you know, their children were getting married. So, you know... It
does seem on a personal level that, as I say, a lot of Indians and Pakistanis are friends. Mr. Haider, I hope you can hear us clearly from Pakistan, but maybe you could give us your view on that. Do you think the countries can solve their differences? I mean, tensions have been high for these last 7 decades.
Let me first say Happy Independence Day to Mr. Singh. A very happy Independence Day to India.
And to you.
Yesterday was our Independence Day. And yes, in theory, both countries can and they should be able to live in peace. But there are structural issues that need to be resolved. There are disputes that need to be resolved. And unfortunately, much as I would like to say that we must live in peace, we have in the last 70 years seen various ups and downs in the relationship. And while people-to-people contact is important, and after 2004 there was a lot of people-to-people contact, and we hoped that the two countries, the two states will also come together, but that did not happen because states actually look at issues in a realist paradigm. And in a realist paradigm, if I use a model, which one of my friends who's one of the eminent political scientists in Pakistan, Dr. Moeed Yusuf, utilized, is the hub and spoke model. India looking at itself as the hub and the rest of the countries in South Asia as the spokes. And with every country, whether it's Bangladesh, whether it's Nepal, whether it's Sri Lanka, whether it's Pakistan, India has had border disputes and other problems. And every time that those disputes have in some way or the other been resolved, they have been resolved on the negotiating terms of India. Because it's the largest country, it's the most powerful country.
Yes, I'm not disputing that, and partly I'll come back to it, this big brother sort of an attitude which India has. See, I'm here to discuss not even as an Indian or I'm an intellectual, I'm a historian. My only instrument of analysis, if you like, is objectivity, that how to make things go forward. You're right that people-to-people contact, and there are structural issues. I would not call structural, I would say political structural, if you like, things to be sorted out between the two polities. But otherwise, as far as people are concerned, I think one of my great friends was Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, the great singer, and I spent a whole night talking to him about such things. I mean, there's great...
So it's the governments are at fault then, you know,
yes,
they're
absolutely. It's the governments which are at fault, and if I may say, if I might say that I think Kashmir has been a bit of an issue in the Pakistan polity right from day one, and something that was created. You know, I mean, it's very important to talk about... we don't have time in such television debates at times to go back into historical backgrounds. But why did this issue come up? I mean, 1,000 years people have lived together. How come? Well, British found that there was a wedge to be driven in the Indian national movement between the Hindus and the British, between the Hindus and the Muslims, and they started giving them separate electorates, that you will be represented in the parliament, in the state assembly at that time, by the numbers that you have of your religion and by the numbers that you have of religion
How
of
much
Hindu.
today, Mr. Haider, do you think religion is a part of the tensions between the two sides?
Let me just go back to what Mr. Singh said, and I know that he made a film about the British Indian Army soldiers who fought in France. And one of the interesting things is that when partition was finally decided, and, you know, I mean, we look back and we think that, you know, Lord Claude Auchinleck was trying to go for some kind of utopia, but it's a fact of history that the British Indian Army, I mean, India was the jewel in the British government's crown, and within India, the British Indian Army was the jewel in the crown. And Lord Auchinleck actually talked to Lord Mountbatten and said that while you're dividing these two countries, you should not divide the British Indian Army. So there was
And that's how the lines were drawn, indeed.
You know, I mean, there was a sense
Unfortunately, you're not going to be able to watch it in Pakistan. That film has not been made. It's been made, but it's showing tonight on Arte for the first time at 11:10.
No, that's great.
And it is a homage. And it is a homage to the Indian and Pakistani soldiers.
But
they were both together.
But we can look back at history, if I may. We can look back at history. It looks like the division lines haven't been the right way forward. But Kashmir seems to be still. Is that still the main stumbling block? And where can we go? It is a mainly Muslim region.
As far as I'm concerned, we are speaking of 70 years of India and Pakistan. Kashmir is one of the things, and that's it. But otherwise, there are 20,000 other things to talk about. When I was coming here in a taxi, I just said, I mean, just as a non-partisan to the whole thing, I said, what does India mean to you 70 years later? I said, first thing, that it's democracy. It's given the world, every sixth person on this planet, which is not a small thing, a voice, man or a woman, transvestite or anyone, that you can vote your people, you can throw him out, you can bring him in. I'll go into the backwardness or the deficiencies of the Indian both economy and democracy later. But the fact is that, I mean, we've had God knows how many elections till now. That's number one. Two, the record of Indian economic development.
Well, when you look even at economics, it would look like both sides would do better if they worked more closely together. Direct trade between India and Pakistan is 2.5 billion. Indirect trade, it's 5 billion. Mr. Haider, just to bring you in again, to get your opinion there on that Kashmir question, is it a smaller element than many of us abroad see?
In full disclosure, I belong to what we have and what we call as Azad Jammu and Kashmir. I belong to an area called Poonch, where there was an uprising much before Pakistan got involved into that war. There were the Poonchis who rose and revolted against the Dogra Maharaja. We liberated our areas. And the same thing happened in Gilgit-Baltistan. So I have a personal bias, and which is why I said in full disclosure, I lost 5 members of my family in combat during that war. And I think it's one of the central and fundamental disputes between India and Pakistan. Right now, as we speak, the Indian Supreme Court is hearing petitions on Article 35A of the Indian Constitution, which says that, which gives the permanent resident status to some of the people in the Indian administered state of Jammu and Kashmir. And the current Bharatiya Janata Party wants to essentially get away with that article, and the Indian Supreme Court is hearing those petitions. So we all, and right now as we speak, everyone in Kashmir, the so-called pro-India parties and also the separatists, they're all on the same page as far as their opposition to this move by the BJP is concerned. So yes, and as you know, or should know, for the last year and a half, there has been the state oppression in the Indian Kashmir Valley.
You see, you don't need to reiterate these things to someone like me, because I know there is a very huge Indian army presence. I know there's a huge army presence in Kashmir at the moment, but I'm trying to come to the historical factors which led to that thing.
But Mr. Singh, as we are sadly already running out of time, do you think, just looking at that tiny one part of the entire picture, is it time for India to relook at the Kashmir question as well, and maybe make it
yes, absolutely, they need to look at it. And if they don't look at it, there's no solution.
They're not going to look at it, Mr. Singh. You know this.
No, there will be no. Not just India, not just India. Bushes of the world, Trumps of the world, everyone wherever they are, they will have to. No war has ever been won in history, sir. Let me tell you that. You have to look at. You have to look at these things. You have to. You have to bother about people's aspirations. You have to bother about people's aspirations. But exactly,
gentlemen,
I know you don't hold a brief for the BJP. But the
never.
fact of the matter is
nor for the Congress, nor for Pakistan, for that matter.
Policies are not about resolving anything.
Mr. Haider and Mr. Singh, sadly we're already out of time. It is indeed a much too short a show to get into the nucleus of the problem in India and Pakistan, but thanks so much for your insights, and let's maybe end with that positive angle that maybe this will be a problem we will see solved in the not too distant future.
I think
that brings us to the end of this show.
One day I suggested in an article in an op-ed piece that we should have Pakistan and India, people should get together and vote for a moratorium on expenses that they do on defence, and invested instead in education and health.
Back to the people. That is the conclusion. Back to the people, which it clearly can get on very well. A very warm thanks again to both of our guests.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to you at home for having watched. That brings us to the end, sadly already, of this debate on France 24. Oh, I'm so...